Come on in, guys, because it's time for another episode of Outwatch, a Survivor Rewatch podcast. We are kicking off a special miniseries here on Outwatch where we will be watching and dissecting the 2007 CBS reality series Kid Nation, which is some wild stuff in a truly wild time. This couldn't be more fitting. I don't know what else I would rather do in quarantine than watch 40 children participate in a reality program. My name is Alex, and I will be giving up the reins as host here in a minute to Adam, who's our resident summer camp expert, which puts him in a great place to lead the discussion on this show. Yeah, a little bit of background, which I'm sure we'll get into, but if you typically follow along and listen to us for the Survivor content, you can find this as well pretty easily on the internet. This is loosely a reality show that was on CBS, and it's 40 kids put in an abandoned town, and now they have to survive. It's wild that this ever existed in the world. Before we get into breaking down today's episode, or episodes rather, one quick bit of housekeeping news. You can find now, in addition to all of your normal podcast platforms, the legacy episodes of Outwatch and new episodes as well are going up on our YouTube channel. As of now, the entire first season of Outwatch is available on the Megabed Media YouTube channel. That's right. Outwatch is a proud member of the Megabed Media podcast network. And you'll surely hear more about that in the days and weeks to come. So yeah, look up Megabed Media on YouTube if you prefer watching stuff that way. So before we get into today's episode, it's time that you meet our co-hosts and my friends. Scott, since you are the reigning champion of Fantasy Survivor, why don't you go first? Welcome to Outwatch, Scott.
Hi guys, good to be back.
So
especially
good to
coming
be
off
back.
of fantasy victory.
Boo.
Wait, play.
You know what? I can get loud too. What the?
That's how Scott's feeling right now. Like Sandra. Hey, Scott, there's a total of 40 kids in this show. Which of those 40 kids do you feel like you resonate most with that you are seeing go through this experience?
Which one quit first? Just kidding.
Jimmy. Little Jimmy.
Let's see. If I was like a 10-year-old kid, I would probably be Jimmy. Like, I would not do this. No, I don't know. That's a tough question. I feel like I would be like, it depends on my age. So if I was 10, I would be worthless. But if I was one of the older kids, I feel like I would be maybe closer to the Michael range. I feel like I would be a productive member of society, maybe more idealistic.
You're not a Greg?
What?
You're not a Greg?
Oh, I don't think I'm. Nowadays, I might be more Greg, but 14. But 14-year-old me was maybe more Michael. I don't know.
Jimmy came in here and immediately he was all,
I'm ready to cry.
comes in with some big Garrett Adelstein energy.
This isn't fun for me right now. I have to be honest.
Yes.
Welcome to Outwatch, Scott. Adam, welcome to Outwatch as well.
So good to be here, Alex.
Which kid are you?
You know, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think Zach from Florida.
I don't know who that is.
11. He's the kid that during the storm kind of takes charge, and he tells everyone to calm down. Has some leadership tendencies to him, but like in general, just isn't very effective as a leader. I think that just kind of like nails me, like right there.
Emily, welcome to Outwatch.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Always. What kid would you find yourself in the same shoes as?
The one who hasn't been on camera at all. That would be me. I was
see
a
you more
quiet
as
little
an
mouse when I was a kid.
Emily.
And I probably would have done my best to work hard, but I was pretty frail. So that would have only taken me so far. And I would not be doing any kind of interviews or making much noise.
We all know it's all about the confessional content.
Yeah, I would have been purple edited out by choice.
Purple Olivia this season so far.
Purple Olivia.
Emily, I think that you would have been blown into a building during that massive windstorm. I was really worried that one kid was getting swept away.
Yeah. I've been in a windstorm like that before, and I have never, I couldn't close my eyes because the wind was keeping them open, and I had flashbacks during that scene. And I was an adult when that happened. I can't imagine if I was a kid. I probably would have just had some lifelong trauma.
I think there's a scene in an episode of SpongeBob where that happens.
Probably.
And that other voice you hear is special guest on our Outwatch miniseries, Jen. Welcome to Outwatch.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah. Which kid do you most resonate with?
Yeah, so I would say either between Sophie, Kitchen Girl.
Sophia.
Sophia. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Sophia, or the older sister of the two Indiana girls.
Yep.
Olivia?
Olivia,
so.
yeah. Her little sister's Mallory.
Mm-hmm. Mallory, yeah.
And yeah, I was telling Alex, I don't think any of the girls have really they haven't focused on their leadership skills quite as much as with those two girls. So I think that's why I'm pulling for those. Mm-hmm. I would have definitely crushed this. For sure.
4-H experience.
Yeah, I was a Girl Scout, but not the annoying Mike kind of scout, and I was just a born leader,
Wow. Yeah, real Sophia energy. I think you would also be the single person to raise your hand every time they're like, does anybody have a problem with the council?
I totally would.
Fun fact, guys, last time we recorded a podcast was within the final 24 hours of Jen and I not being engaged. So
that's
a
right.
bit of Outwatch history.
And Alex are engaged.
Yep. It was all thanks to the romantic vibes at our Outwatch Amazon finale.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about him until I saw him live on the Outwatch podcast. That's when I knew.
I've seen the ring, and it looks scarily familiar to a Zeta Pledge crown.
I got them shipped from the same Chinese website.
I thought it was ethical.
Yeah, a real Robin Amber story.
A real Robin Amber.
I don't have a great answer to this, but Jen insists that the Alex on the show
with the one tooth
is also me. He had a line where he was like, all this violence makes me uneasy.
Yes.
And she said that was me, so.
Well, he has the same bowl cut that he had when he was a child. And he's just the cutest little thing. Also, he's the one that his transition glasses never transition.
Yeah, they're always dark.
Cool.
So yeah, we have watched the first 3 episodes of Kid Nation. So this is probably going to be about a 4-episode miniseries where we go through this weird series. Yeah, there's a playlist on YouTube where you can find all of these episodes for free. If you just type in Kid Nation, you'll find a playlist, and all of them are in there. So yeah, if you'd like to watch this wild show as well, you can. Adam, do you know if it's on CBS All Access?
It is not.
Okay.
We actually, I remember checking a while back, and then we checked again before we started watching this because CBS was the one that aired it. So it makes sense that they should have it.
They're too embarrassed.
They're too chicken. They can't do it.
Yeah, they probably want to strike all record from this show's existence.
Yeah.
From the world. Well, like I said off the top, Adam is going to be leading us in our Kid Nation journey for this miniseries. So, Adam, it's all yours. Take it away.
Thanks, Alex. So off the bat, you've heard the name of the show that we're doing. It's called Kid Nation. There is a chance that you remember it. It aired in 2007 for 13 episodes. There was one season of this show. It was pitched as a sort of reality show, reality game show type thing, which was fairly popular at the time. A group of 48 to 15-year-old kids are sent to Bonanza, New Mexico, which is an abandoned pioneer town, and told to revive it. It's in the show. It's sort of pitched as this, like, let's see what kids can do. But in reality, the producers, the creator of the show, really pitched it as more Lost is really popular right now. There's hundreds of abandoned people on this island with these overarching stories from episode to episode that don't necessarily relate or whatever, and we can do something similar. Even going so far as to call this a social experiment. So to give us some context as we're watching this, keeping that in mind that the show was never actually meant to be a game show. It was meant to just be something where a person who the creator of the show took 48 to 15-year-olds, put them in an abandoned 1800s pioneer town, and let the cameras roll. CBS added the game show components to it because it was popular at the time. 2007, Survivor is really starting to reach a peak. Big Brother, there are reality shows all over the place. It's a massive thing in that moment. So what happens is all these kids, they get there, they're dropped off from a bus a few miles away from Bonanza because they can't drop them off in Bonanza, apparently. They introduce them to these 4 kids that represent their general demographics, and Jonathan, the host, says age and geography as the only 2 examples of demographics, which I love. And sends them on their way. Says these 4 people are your council leaders and they're in charge. You guys kind of follow them. They get divided up into 4 different districts: a green, yellow, blue, and is it
Red?
Yellow, blue, and red. Mm-hmm.
District. And they're sort of living their town. And then we get to what is known as the first showdown, which is really where CBS added their game show components to this. Mm-hmm. So what happens is every episode there is one showdown where all the districts compete against each other. But if all the districts get something done at the same, or get it done within a certain amount of time, then they get to choose between 2 prizes, which is pretty much always something extremely practical and something completely impractical. So you're asking a bunch of kids to choose the practical or fun thing, which is hilarious. They're also competing for their jobs in the town, because while it is pitched as these kids are going to build a society, the producers structure everything. Here is your council and here are your jobs. And what they do is say there is an upper class, a merchant class, a cook's class, and a labor class. If you are an upper class, you don't have to do anything. You get paid $1 per day. If you're a merchant class, you have to run the shops and the saloon, which is basically a candy store and a soda fountain. And you get paid 75 or 50 cents a day. The cook's class cooks for everybody, which I don't know if you've ever cooked for 40 people, but there is no 8 to 15-year-old that is equipped to cook for 40 people on a wood-fired stove. They get paid 25 cents a day, and the labor class gets to clean out all of the outhouses and all that good stuff, and they get paid 10 cents a day. So the producers essentially throw all these kids into town and say, best of luck. Also, here's a class system that we devised. Enjoy. And that is Kid Nation. It's going to be 13 episodes. We're going through a number of different episodes per our episode of miniseries because we don't want to go through this beat by beat because it's not really designed to be that way. So off the bat, I guess I just want to ask you guys, coming into this not knowing I assume you didn't do too much research into Kid Nation. What are your just episode 1? What are you thinking? Let's go with Scott. Like, first episode, how are we feeling about this as a show?
Right. Yeah. So I did no research for this show at all. I just like clicked on the link, started an episode, and off we go. So yeah, I'm happy it's not a game show because I just feel like it would make it somehow worse. Yeah. So my first thought watching it is like, how is this going to make it the full season? Like, was it meant to go longer, or is 13 episodes like all we get through? And also just like, what is the dynamic going to be like? Are the kids actually going to be able to make it? Like, are the adults going to have to step in? Like, I had many thoughts, but I don't know. I'm kind of happy it wasn't like, I'm happy we're not voting kids off and stuff, though. I feel like that would not be, I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't feel good watching it for some reason. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. There's definitely, what was a few years ago, there was a show, I don't remember what it was on, but it was, they were tasked, there was a bunch of adults and they were tasked with creating a perfect society. And it gets canceled after like 8 episodes or something like that because it's crazy.
Dude, is this the show? I remember this. Isn't it a show that's marketed and pitched as that, but it's actually like a scripted drama? Or is that a different one?
It's a different one because this one, the one I'm talking about, like they put their location out into the world until people would actually come up to the place where they were supposed to be like building their society and like try to get on camera and like stuff like that. There were a lot of mistakes they made trying to make that show. That not being the biggest one. But yeah, so this was an interesting question of mine because I vaguely remember this show from when I was a kid. It happening. I don't remember watching it, but when I found out there were 13 episodes of this, I was like, I have to watch this because how does this not get canceled?
Yeah.
And you're like, and that's my big question is, we're 3 episodes in. If you are the producer on this show, when would you have pulled the plug, Alex?
2007, such a weird time. If I've learned anything from our like Amazon rewatch, is that TV was just a wildly different thing than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
I had a moment in episode 3 with the like weather situation when I was like, oh, is this safe? Is this okay? And that was the moment where I was kind of like, this maybe is like not just, I don't know, a bad idea, but like maybe actually unsafe. So that was my point.
Yeah.
It wasn't the unsupervised kid rushing the bowl.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about, if anyone remembered that moment.
Yeah, it was like, oh, we're about to watch a 9-year-old get gored on TV.
Yeah. Well, because this is the problem with this show is if you are a part of the camera crew, you're a producer or whatever, and you're watching this kid stand his ground against a bull and then start walking towards it, how do we not have a shot where an adult is rushing in saying, no, 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 no?
Yeah.
We don't have that shot. Like, what was happening?
I was literally waiting for the camera to drop and be like a bad edit out and then just like pan to the next thing. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Scott.
I was like going to say, like, the liability that they took on with this is insane. Just like, I don't know, like, as a parent, how you would let your kid go on this show.
Well, it's funny too when they like the kids that win the gold stars, they call home and they're always like, we're so proud of you. It's, keep sticking it out. You're doing great.
I think it makes me think that the parents think something wildly different is happening.
Oh my God.
Well, I have a theory about the parent calls, actually.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure that out too.
Because there's a camera crew with the parents. And so it can't just be that like the kid is given the gold star. they run and call their parents because there needs to be time for the camera crew to get there. So I have a theory that either all of the phone calls happened after the fact, like a day or two after the fact, or all of the kids made a phone call home and they just recorded it.
Interesting.
Well, I don't think that phone is real that they're talking
it's
into.
not.
And so like they're not dialing. It all of a sudden sounds like just a cell phone is dialing in. It doesn't sound like an old phone.
Right.
And so it's clearly not happening right then or there at all.
Right.
I want to figure this out now.
Or they did run and call home in a different location with a production member's cell phone and they recorded the audio. No, that doesn't work.
Well, because this is the thing is the because in episode 3, Mallory wins the gold star. Oh, that's the other thing. I don't know if we've even talked
I don't
about
think
this.
you have, and you should explain what's happening.
So the council every like 3 or 4 days, something like that. Basically every time there's an episode, they give a gold star to the best citizen, I think is how they describe it. Basically, I don't know. It's so arbitrary. But it's a literal like gold star, and it's worth $20,000.
No, it's worth its weight in gold.
It's thank you, Jonathan.
Freaking discount ass Probst. Get out of here, Jonathan.
And that's the thing is like he's clearly mimicking Probst in this. Like it's not subtle. But yeah, so the gold star is worth $20,000. It's given to the best citizen, and as determined by the council. And it's not until episode 3 that we start seeing the townspeople nominate someone because democracy. And then they get to go and call their parents and tell them what just happened, that they won $20,000. But the problem is there's a camera with the parents, and so clearly this isn't happening in real time. And I don't know if, like, in the moment, I mean, like, it's so far removed from it, we're like, yeah, this can't be real. But in the moment, do we buy it? Like in 2007, watching that episode, do we buy that this is happening in real time?
The phone calls?
Yeah, the phone call.
Dude, I've been trying to figure that out since we saw that like first one, and I can't like wrap my head around the way that it worked. I'm like doing internet research right now to see if I can figure it out because I do want to know.
My theory is that they actually picked the person the night before and told the producers, or that was actually like 2 nights before, and we just think it's the day of.
Right.
And they fly a crew out and they have like them there when it's actually happening. But they did have some lead time to get the crew to the house.
It feels so expensive.
They're also just
to be
giving out
fair,
$20,000.
The first episode, they were like, here's your town council. And they came in on a helicopter. So I don't feel like expenses were that much of a concern for this show.
It was pre recession.
I think they're writing it all off because they're giving it to their education. So it could be seen as like a donation.
Ooh.
So like each $20,000 could be like their way of giving back and like a tax credit or whatever.
Are they actually giving them $20,000? How does that work? I'm very interested.
It probably gets like put into
29.
some kind of fund until they're 18.
Yeah.
Well, they do say like, if you like listen closely, it's like, and then you and your parents get to decide later how you choose to use this for your future.
Mm-hmm.
This is really shady if the parents can take the $20,000.
I think that is a possibility.
Yeah.
So there is actually a law passed by Congress that doesn't that makes it illegal for parents to take money won by money earned by child actors. I don't know if that would apply to this, but I feel like there's some kind of precedent that that could have been set with that.
Well, we all know that Greg has a rough family life due to his on-screen performance. And so I'm worried that if he ever gets to 20,000, it won't actually go to him.
I think he's just a 15-year-old boy.
So
Stuck with a bunch of 10-year-olds.
So let's
He's got some angst.
Let's actually I wanna dive into a few of the people that we've met along the way so far. So episode 1, we're introduced to our town council, which consists of Laurel, who is I'm trying to remember off the top of my head because I didn't write it down. I think she's 12, 14 years old.
Is she the redhead?
She's from Massachusetts.
Yeah, she's 12.
She's 12. Okay. So Laurel, 12 from Massachusetts. There's Mike, who is 11. I have no idea where he's from, but he's a Boy Scout.
He sure is.
There is Anjay, who I have no idea how old he
I
is.
think he's like 11.
I think he's 11. 11? Okay, we'll go with 11. And then there's Taylor, who is 10 years old. And these are our council members, and then a few of the major characters we've sort of been introduced to at this point. There's Michael, who's a member of the Green Team. He's 14 Is he Green Team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's 14 years old. There's Sophia, also a member of the Green Team, 14 years old, who
Queen.
is she's taken over the kitchen essentially. There's Greg, and then it's Greg and Blaine, but it's Greg, who is 15, a member of the Blue Team. And then Olivia and Mallory are sisters from Indiana. They're 9 and 12. They're members of the Blue Team, Red Team.
I think they're blue.
Blue? That sounds right to me. I think those are the big characters we kind of introduced to at this point. There are a few other ones, DK and stuff like that, but like those are people we have actual like story arcs for. So we've talked about Greg. May or may not be a sociopath. I'm sorry. He's 15 years old. I get it. But also like at the end of every episode, like we're basically just watching his descent into a supervillain. Every time he doesn't win a gold star. What are our favorite Greg moments at this point?
I loved when early on at the first like town hall meeting when he was like trying to speak up, and then Mike, because Mike, we could talk for a long time about Mike. Mike is, every person who's ever worked with kids has worked with a Mike. Just very loud, very angry. He's right about a lot of stuff, and he's so competent, and you can't tell him otherwise. But, you know, Mike doesn't take too kindly to Greg trying to speak up, and so Mike gets in Greg's face, and Greg says, "Don't get in my face." And then Mike gets more deeply in Greg's face, and he pushes the child. And in that moment, I was kind of like, kind of deserve that, Mike.
So that's a really interesting take, though, because in some sense, like Greg is undermining Mike's authority in some sense. Like Mike is the council leader, and he's trying to take control. And then he has Greg, who's kind of standing behind him, like telling him, like, "Hey, you suck at this. You're not good at this. Like, you need to do better. Take control. Take control."
Yeah.
And that's sort of him taking control. I don't feel like it's, you know, the problem was Greg didn't want to be controlled there, right?
Right. I think he was like trying to help, right? But yeah, and maybe his way of helping was controlling. But there was also, he had like a confessional or whatever where he was like, "I've done, you know, like tile work and duct work and butcher, and I've ran PVC," and it's like, what freaking 15-year-old has all these skills?
That was my thought.
Also, if
like
we do this in 2020, they're going to be like, "I'm really good at Minecraft."
I got strong holes vibes from the very beginning of the show with the bus pulling up into a dusty lot. And I just feel like all of the characters could probably be could be compared to a Holes character. I was trying to look them up real quick to find the name of the mean one on Holes, if anyone can pull that reference out. I feel like he's the mean one that like hits the other kid in the lunchroom. I just have been waiting for that reference to come up.
What is the name of the mean one?
From Holes?
From Holes.
The mean kid. Is it
X-ray?
Armpit? X-ray?
It might be X-ray.
I'm pretty sure it's X-ray, right? He's like in charge or something.
Yeah.
That feels right.
Let's go with X-ray.
X-ray.
If we're wrong, tweet at us.
Yeah.
Holes Rewatch podcast coming soon.
All right. Well, how do we feel about Laurel then? Emily, you are in love with Laurel's accent.
Well, I just really enjoyed it. They first interviewed her when they were announcing the council, and I couldn't tell that she had an accent. But then what did she say? She said something where it was very apparent. It was like when people say like Harvard Yard, like she said something.
She dropped her R's
two in a row. She dropped her R's. I was
Okay.
like, yes, you are so from Massachusetts. It was great.
I could like feel that every once in a while, but I couldn't like pinpoint what the accent was.
They're working hard.
They're working hard.
I can't do it, but Laurel can because she's a genuine
They're
treasure.
working wicked hard.
Yeah.
I was like worried that she had a speech impediment for a
Oh
second.
no, she's from Boston, girl.
Well,
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
then I
that doesn't
saw
mean
that.
she doesn't.
Yeah, because
No,
it's
she does.
stronger
She does.
at some points than others. But
Yeah,
she's
no,
real
she
cute.
sounds like she's from Massachusetts. Like it's
Yeah, she does.
so strong.
She does. Also, I didn't say this, but just so everyone knows, I am very uncomfortable with this show.
Speak to that. What like because this is going to be the tension of the whole like show as we're watching it is
Yeah.
it was made as entertainment, but we also know how awful it is. You in particular, I can't enjoy it.
I really can't. And I was like, honestly, waffling if I should even be on the podcast because I was like, I'm just going to be a fun suck, but it's actually nice and therapeutic to talk it through with our friends. Much like Greg, I am super angsty when I watch this show. I don't know. I hate that like these kids probably didn't choose to be on the show.
Right.
You know, like their parents probably, and I don't know, I'd love to see some facts, but their parents probably chose for them to be on the show. It's entertainment. If it's entertainment or a social experiment, it's children, and I don't feel good about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Either way. It's also interesting because I keep hearing, because I've done some like light research because I need to figure out what's happening. And I've seen that the producer was saying, like Adam was mentioning, the producer wanted this to be more of a documentary series to see like how kids will act when they aren't dictated by adults who have like lived life, and see if they can create a more perfect society. But then you throw in a class system and okay, that's completely out the window then that you're going to just this idea of, well, kids can create a better society if we let them. Well, you haven't let them. You've put in you've implemented these things that are going to inhibit them actually doing that. And so that is just kind of like a false thought, I guess. I don't know. It makes me sad to see the kids crying when they're feeling lonely and when they want to go home. And even like, I don't like that it is entertainment too, because we get to the third episode and Taylor is being not nice. She is being very selfish.
Yeah.
And she's being a child because she is a child. And all these people stand up and they're like, you're being horrible and we don't like you. And she starts crying. She's up there in front of everybody and she's just crying.
Because
I'm like,
she's
this
10.
is, yes, because she's a child.
Right.
And even if she's not behaving correctly, I mean, she's got to learn, but I don't feel like this is the way it should happen.
She's never had to make herself a bowl of cereal, let alone make 40 kids
Yeah.
Right.
homemade food. from a cookbook.
Emily, you're missing step number 1 to enjoying reality television, and that's pretending that these people aren't real. That the trauma they're experiencing isn't real. You have to pretend that.
I think a low point was watching the little girls like create a teddy bear like
Daycare or something? Yeah.
That felt like I still can't quite put words to it. The like amount of psychological, I don't know, like
are we good here?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Is everyone okay?
yeah. Yeah, I just felt worried for them.
Yeah.
So I think this is the thing, though, is because
If I was 10, I would have done that.
Yeah. this is the thing, though, is the show is basically pitched as well. So it's pitched as a reality game show. It's to the audience. It's pitched to CBS as a social experiment. Mm-hmm. When in reality, I think more often than not, the show feels like the producers are trying to recreate Lord of the Flies. Mm-hmm. Because week after week, in particular, Greg, we see Greg descend further and further into anger over not winning a gold star. So episode 1, he's very strong. He's very much like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But he's also kind of mean. He's rough around the edges. And then he learns that there is a gold star and money on the line. Episode 2, he is helping everyone he possibly can. He's doing things that he doesn't have to do. He's being the type of person that he thinks would win the gold star.
He kills a chicken.
He does kill a chicken because of what the town wants.
Hated that.
He's butchered chickens. He's butchered pigs. He's butchered cows. He's a little psychopath.
Oh gosh.
And then and he doesn't win the gold star in episode 2. And then episode 3, we see him lash out about that at the beginning. We see him kind of come around on it as, you know, I'm angry, but I'm still going to help the town, which feels like it should be more gold star worthy because in some sense he's still helping, even though he's angry at what is happening. And then he doesn't get the gold star, and it ends with this very dark one-on-one with him where he's like, I'm going to like show him basically. Mm-hmm. I guess this is our question is, do we feel like the commentary on it, that it is a social experiment? Do we feel like this is in earnest?
Well, I think you've like said it well. I don't remember which one of you said it, but that like, I don't know, like that idea on its own is like kind of compelling and interesting. But then when you introduce systems that keep that from happening, it's no longer like earnest or real. And like, the class system, namely, is like, I don't know. I understand why CBS like wanted to take this idea and like gamify it a little bit. And like, I think that, the showdowns are some of the more like compelling parts of the show, but like to instead just kind of like let them go would have been interesting as a social experiment, if not as like a television show, but yeah, I don't know. I think that like, it's tough to see that as actually their goal here, right? Instead, their goal is to create, a reality TV show where there's drama and stakes and I don't know, wild stuff happens.
Right. Well, and that's fair. Is like this is part of the issue with this conversation is it's hard to separate. It's hard to separate entertainment from what is actually happening.
Yeah.
Well, I think like, could the kids continue on without the incentivization of the classes that it provided and the structure that they're so used to? It did give them some sort, which obviously is what you're saying is like not making it earnest, but without that, like it would have become Lord of the Flies a lot faster and just like way more screaming. There's just been
There's a lot of screaming.
It's so stressful. The whole thing is just a bunch of screaming.
Do we feel like, okay, so yeah, if we're gonna fix this, if we're gonna make this slightly less tense or stressful or whatever, what are some changes that we would make to the show then?
I think you could just make it a reality competition show and have kids do it. Like these existed, right? Like Nickelodeon Guts and Legends of the Hidden Temple, existed, and those were fine. Like
That's a good point.
You could take 40 kids and like have it be, okay, you split into 4 groups. There's going to be competitions. You have like duties to perform. And like at the end of each 3-day cycle, there's like some thing that you win. And you guys are going to have to learn to like get together and like, or work together and, XYZ in order for this to go well. And I don't know. I think that takes some of the edge off and also, like allows for there to be more producer interaction. Because, once you start saying, like, we're just going to let them do what they're going to do. Like, of course, you open the door to, like, it's a bunch of kids. They don't know what to do. And so they're going to make bad decisions that are, like, harmful to themselves or to other people. So,
So I think you need, like, a healthy amount of direction.
Yeah.
From, like, you just need, like, a healthy amount of adult supervision this whole time. Like not enough to, like, influence the kids, but also, like, you don't want kids running roughshod out in the middle of the desert with no direction. Like when the storm hit, I'm like, it'd be really good to see like an adult right now.
Yeah. And they're there, right? Every producer and every camera person is an adult, right? But like, how much are they interacting with the kids? How much are they like keeping them from killing themselves? Like we don't know that.
Yeah, or like risking their lives for like a good shot of a storm sweeping the kids into buildings. Like that to me just felt careless.
I will also say, at least later on, I it's hard to find interviews from the time. So this was a very controversial show when it went on the air. Whether you can believe that or not, there was a lot of criticism about it.
It's reassuring.
I'm sure there are interviews from it, but just the way searching works, it's harder to find that stuff than the more recent things. There's an interview done a few years ago for the 10-year anniversary where they talk about how they had basically a full-on pediatrics department, physicians and psychologists for kids in order to make sure that they were safe and no one got seriously hurt or was traumatized. And in some sense, they do a very good job of making you feel like, are you doing anything to help these kids?
Right.
And so there's that question of like, are you just saying that now after the fact? Like, how are you inflating how robust your safety measures were to help make this less criticized or whatever? But there is a lot of support that is apparently happening in the background.
Yeah.
They just do a really good job of not showing it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is kind of the hallmark of any good reality show. Because, I mean, like, the amount of work that goes into Survivor, like, behind the scenes, that, like, you'd get zero sense of because all you're focused on is what's happening with the people right there in front of you.
Yeah. I think what's, like, I don't know what the word to describe this is. I don't know what I feel about it. But, like, I don't know. Maybe it's an apt, like, I don't know, like image of, I don't know, this reflects real life in some way, I guess, right? And that in the midst of all of this, like, you're watching loud, chaotic drama and, like, these kids doing, like, silly things or being mean, and it's, like, a really, like, terrible spot for them to be in. There's, like, a handful of times an episode where a kid or a group of kids, like, does something and you're like, whoa, that's awesome. Like, that's really cool. Like, this is a smart thing. These kids are smart. They are, like, capable, that, like, yeah, it's kind of, like, lost in the midst of this. The, like, I don't know if you guys remembered in the, like, very opening sequence where, like, a kid freaking, like, lassos a goat.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This kid just lassoed a goat. And, and like, yeah, the way that like,
Colton,
was it Colton?
who like herded the sheep.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a cowboy.
No doubt. Yeah. Like some of these, I don't know, like really like achievements, by these kids that like we lose to some degree or like overplayed by, I don't know, Taylor the beauty queen not wanting to work and the kid's response to that, right?
I mean, they had to. It makes me wonder how much work they did beforehand, like recruiting the kids and knowing their background, because like Greg obviously was put on the show for like,
He's the bully.
they're he's the bully, or like they're preying on that vulnerability in him, but also he's a butcher. And like they knew at some point they were going to give these kids live chickens, and which kid was going to butcher it? Like, or would that have not have been a part of it?
I did, like I said, I did some research, and I know that the producer was talking about he definitely didn't want to use like child actors in this because he wanted it to be more like natural.
Sure.
So I know that they went to a lot of gifted and talented programs and recruited from there. But then I didn't read anything about this, but they have definitely gotten kids from like 4-H and kids from farms and things, because those are completely transferable skills in this show.
Yeah.
And then they have Taylor.
Taylor.
Sweet girl.
There is, we're talking about recruiting, and there was a quote. I've written down a few quotes, a few choice quotes throughout the episodes, but in episode 2, Emily, she loves the chickens and she doesn't want them to butcher the chickens. She locks herself in the pen.
Chicken girl.
Oh, I thought we were talking about me until you said that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Same.
Would have been the same thing. She's 9 years old, and she basically says, if you butcher the chickens, then I'm going to leave. And she ultimately makes the decision to not leave, even though they do butcher the chickens. And one of the things she says is, when my mom told me to come, which
I heard that.
I think tells us a lot about what the recruiting was like for this show. It wasn't like a bunch of kids who were like, I want to be on TV. I want to like be an actor. Like, this is a game show that I want to be a part of. It was producers who went to schools, who went to communities, and were like, we're looking for people to do this thing. And Emily's mom in this case went to her kid and said, like, you should do this. Yeah. Which is like, that's not a bad thing. Like, parents should push their kids to do something.
Maybe not this. I don't know.
There's a question about whether this is the right thing or not.
Yeah, I was pushed to go to summer camp, and like that was hard enough.
This is kind of like fucked up summer camp.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. I've read through Michael's entire AMA on Reddit.
Michael did an AMA.
He was talking about, he was 14 when he joined the show, and he even answered a question. Someone was like, do you have regrets? Would you have, like, looking back, are you glad that you did this? Would you still do it? And he was like, yeah, I'm glad that I did it. I have no regrets about it. But he was 14.
He was 14.
So I just wonder, like, the younger kids too.
I think that's a big thing that I would change about this show if I was going to try to bring it back, which I never would because it's a ridiculous thing. But if I was going to try to bring it back, 8 to 15 years old is such a wide range. There's so much development that happens between those years. And also, you can't trust a bunch of 13 to 15 year olds to like not be supervised and stay on their own bunks. So like, it's just, there's so many things about the show that are hard to like.
Yeah, I had a problem with that, with like the whole Greg rampage scene and like him cursing, and I was not expecting that and was like, why is no one stepping in to calm him down? That is a producer. And just like the little girls being super scared and like yeah, everything within me was like, I literally felt my body like going towards the screen, wanting to like cut the tension or like fix the situation and like calm them down, and just like felt so sad and like worried for them, and also worried for Greg. Like that just shows like so much built up aggression and like how he sees, you know, problems being solved outside of the show, you know?
Well, and this is the thing that we talk about in Survivor, where we'll come up with a strategy, or someone will do something dumb, and we'll have to remember that they've been living on an island for 28 days. They're sleep deprived, they're malnourished. In this case, like, their brain isn't fully developed.
Right.
Yeah.
They're sleep
9
deprived.
years old.
They're cold. They're hungry. They're all of these things. And so we just see in some cases, we see the absolute worst in them, especially in this Greg moment, where we just know that like at some point along the way, it feels like someone has failed him, but also like in this moment right now, there is an adult who is failing him. Mm-hmm. And we never see that adult come and like try to correct this.
Right.
And then we see a testimonial where he's like, he seems to have gotten over it. And we just kind of move past it.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's talk about the showdowns, because those are actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
So in episode 1, so the showdowns were divided in districts. Like I think I said this earlier, if everyone completes the showdown in a certain amount of time, they get to choose between 2 different rewards. And then the order that they complete the showdown determines where they fit in the class structure the producer set up. In episode 1, it's the water pump showdown. So each district has their own pump, and they are trying to get water out from the ground. They have to put it over these pipes and then put a tube down the pipes and then physically pump the water out, and then fill these 3 jars as quickly as possible. Winds up being that the red team, this is utterly meaningless. The red team is the upper class, the blue is the merchant class, the yellow is the cooks, and the green are the laborers. And the rewards they get to choose between are either more outhouses, because currently there is 1 outhouse for 40 kids, or a television, which is awesome. That the producers were like, they might choose a TV. In the second showdown, they have to run this pipe through this sort of obstacle course kind of thing, and then turn a water wheel at the end of it. They're just connecting PVC pipe together to get water from one end to the other, essentially, while water is running through it. The blue team gets the upper class, the red team gets the merchant class, the yellow gets the cooks again, and the green get the labor again, where Michael from the green team, the green team actually doesn't finish in this, but Michael says, and I quote, "It could be worse. We could live in Ethiopia."
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that.
So that was cool. If they had completed it in time, which they don't, they would have gotten to choose between a 40-foot water slide or several non-freezing water pumps throughout the town. Which,
I mean, you've got to take the water slide, right?
Right? You've got to take the 40-foot. It's heated. It's a heated water slide.
It's a pretty sick water slide.
And then episode 3, they're the council leader in charge of your district stands higher up. There are a bunch of sheep with names written on the back, and then they have a wanted list. And on the sheeps, there's an ace card with your district color on it. Your goal is to get 3 of these ace cards with your district color on it, directed by your councilman. If everyone manages to do it in 5 minutes, which they do, they choose between a microwave and cocoa or 40 pizzas.
I just
Which
have
again,
a question.
I love. What do we feel about these challenges going into this? We're a Survivor podcast, so I love to talk about the challenges. Scott, how do we feel the challenges compare?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I still think Survivor does it better. I did love the water challenge with the oil rig style pump thing.
Mm-hmm.
That one was cool.
I loved that one a lot. I was not as big a fan of the sheep one. I didn't fully understand what was going on there, to be honest. But I just feel like maybe it's because there's adults doing the Survivor challenges. I just feel like they're somehow better done, personally.
The sheep challenge was the first bad one. I'm a big fan of the pipe running challenge. It's not as good as the water pump one, but there's a moment in there where Greg has Blaine. So there's like a wall of pipes, and only one of them actually leads to the exit pipe. And so Greg has Blaine talking to each pipe until he can hear him. And it's just like, it's brilliant that he didn't have to like run the pipes to each one. I love that moment. It was just a really great moment of like, this 15-year-old figure out how to do it better than this 8-year-old. Surprise.
Yeah, we've definitely seen Survivor challenges that are worse than these.
Yeah, for sure.
Adam, you have experience at summer camp. I had a number of moments in these episodes and some of these showdowns, especially that PVC pipe one, especially triggered this, where I'm like, this is just high budget, unsupervised camp.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there would be a number of things that would happen, and I'm like, I've experienced some version of this when there's lots of kids together, except the difference was that there were adults here to stop it from happening. And like these games, especially the PVC pipe ones, it feels like, all right, here's the big game we cooked up, for all the kids to play.
Well, that is honestly, like, some of these games are things that, like, if I had an unlimited budget and an engineer who could make just anything work, like, I worked as an interim director and then a director for a summer camp for 2 years. And like some of these games, like, I would have done this, like that water pump game. If I had the means to make that game, I would have made that game and we would have played it like every summer.
Yeah.
The pipe game is a fun thing. You probably do that as like each cabin gets a chance to just play it by themselves. But the sheep thing is fun too. I mean, we used to play a game where we would all the kids would stand around a giant mud puddle, and then we'd release like pigs into the middle of it, and you'd call it a number. And if you had that number, you'd have to run in and try to like capture the pig for your team. And the sheep reminds me of that. Like, it's probably it's a more humane way of probably playing that game. I will admit, but
no, I felt really bad for the sheep. The whole
also,
time.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great thing.
Like, they're like naturally like scared creatures, right? And so then you like add in.
Well, Greg let us know that if you move fast, they move fast, but if you move slow, they'll slow down too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Greg is so wise.
I was waiting for a sheep to just like bite a kid's hand.
I'm trying to think. Are there any like major plot points that we've missed talking about at this point?
I have a question and a theory.
Go for it.
Let's hear it.
Greg is a freaking plant.
What is the question?
Do you guys agree with this? So he just so happens to be a butcher when they needed him to be a butcher. And my theory is he's just there to sow chaos into this whole show. Like, they've coached him on to do this, I think. I literally asked myself that watching this. Like, even from like the first thing where they said like he's running around and they're graffitiing, like when they first split into groups, like him and the Blaine kid run around and write graffiti on all over like the town signs and stuff. I'm like, Greg's just here to be like a villain and like be the anti story to this whole season. And so does anybody else agree with me when I say this?
That's a compelling theory because he is skilled in all the ways that like they need someone to be skilled as well.
Yeah, he's definitely the Joker to Mike's Batman.
We cannot compare Mike to Batman.
No, but he is his arch nemesis, so
So basically the same thing.
yeah.
Well,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say just like we're gonna butcher chickens. Oh, I'm a butcher.
Mm-hmm.
What? You're 15. No, you're not. I don't know. I just had a hard time believing it or watching it.
Yeah, I his knowledge is pretty wide for a 15-year-old. I will say I helped my aunt and uncle butcher a couple of pigs when I was a sophomore in high school, which puts me at about 16. I mean, that's not too far off.
I guess that's true. I don't know. Maybe I was like lived a very sheltered childhood. So I just have a hard time believing all of this, which I guess I could see. Like, I'm walking back my own theory now, talking out loud. I guess I totally see like a 15-year-old doing stuff like I just said, but I don't know. I just had a hard time believing it in the moment.
Yes. I would say at the very least, he was chosen to be the villain. I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he was a full-on plant and that he was like coached in the things that they would need him to be coached in.
And I mean, it's like set up to be an interesting dynamic where he's the kid that like all the other kids don't like, but yet they need him.
They need him
to kill chickens and overturn outhouses.
And
Overturn. He's the Brawn. He's the Brawn tribe.
He is the
He
Brawn.
is. There's a real similarity there in Survivor because you have the physically strong player who maybe isn't the best personality, but they keep them on because they need them.
Because they need him.
Oh, who's the Survivor analog we've watched so far? Is he Bert? No, Bert was a nice guy. Sean from Pearl Islands.
Who was the? He was like a horse.
Oh,
trainer.
LJ.
LJ, yeah. What do we feel about comparing him to LJ?
He could be LJ.
He could be LJ.
Totally.
Could it be Jeremiah?
Could be Jeremiah. I got some serious fan points today.
TBT to when Tony talked about Jeremy. He was referring to Jeremiah.
Yeah.
I think the thing that struck me the hardest early on and that I just can't get out of my head is how it's like it's too real that the upper class doesn't have to do any work and yet they make double the amount of money as anyone else.
Yeah.
That's too true to life, and it is upsetting that that's also real life. And I don't like that.
It's a wild thing to me that that's how they chose to do it. Like, I feel like you could even have let the kids decide and wound up with the same type of show. Like, if you just had a moment where it's like, all right, all of you are going to vote on how much you think, like, this is all of the money that can be paid. Either we can distribute this equally to the different jobs, or this job can get paid more, this job can get paid less.
That would be a very interesting way for the kids to make their own society.
Because I think that's the thing that it's missing, where it's like the producers seem to make a lot of the big decisions. So if you want to treat it as a social experiment, it's not, because the producers make the decisions for the kids that are really would have the biggest impact in terms of we're building a society, quote unquote.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's them like not having faith that the kids would actually pull through and still have this desire to make movement within the community. Instead, they feel like if we don't provide these structures or these money incentives with these challenges, yeah, they're just gonna riot, or I don't know, like what they thought.
Well, and this is part of the problem too, is that like the yellow team is bad at being cooks.
Yeah.
Like they're not good cooks, and so the green team winds up being cooks anyway. So the society has fallen apart under the structure that they set, where they were very rigid that this is how we determine who does what, as opposed to
What are you skilled at?
Yeah, I think there's a way that, again, we're dealing with kids, so like obviously this should never happen, what I'm about to say. But there's a way where you make this show where it's like the producers are providing structure. They're saying, all right, you could do it this way or you could do it this way. And the kids decide one of those two ways, and then they live with that decision. Which feels more true to what they claim they were setting out to do, in my mind at least.
Right. Like even back to like your money example, it's like you could just say like, hey, you 4 council people, you need to figure out how this will be divided up.
Right.
And let them go. Like you don't
Right.
like you're setting the parameter, but you're letting them ultimately dictate it.
All right.
My only other note is that Michael, aka Eric Reichenbach Jr., which our Survivor fan listeners will get the reference and appreciate, big time winner at it for Michael. I think he's early on. He's a candidate to get the $1 million at the end, getting a lot of sweeping dramatic score when he's talking. Big time winner at it for Michael.
That does lead me to 2 points that I have not yet discussed. One, the music in this thing is nauseating.
Amazing,
It's
right?
Yeah, it is
nauseating. It changes with the drop of a hat. It's like everything is super sad, or it's super inspiring, or it's plunky saloon piano. It's a whirlwind.
It's
and
Old Yeller's
distracting.
soundtrack, I think. You know that
What?
movie with the dog that dies? Old Yeller. And like
Yeah.
they have to go find it, or Where the Red Fern Grows, like that era. I think it's just that soundtrack that they're just playing.
I think
I think that's accurate.
we also miss out on commercial breaks.
Right, but also
Because I agree the soundtrack sucks, but also like we're missing like hard breaks in the show where we're not watching it
regardless,
anymore.
they'll like have the kids talking, and then someone will say something, and they'll have a kid reacting to it, and their head will whip around, and then it'll be like da-na-na. Like, this is I can make the assumptions. You don't need to make the music make the assumptions for me. My second point though is I am so uncomfortable, and I would love to have someone who was on this show on our podcast. Michael, I know you did an AMA. I would love to hear more. Please help us deal with what's happening. Give us more insight. We'd love to
Inspire us,
know
Michael.
the background of this show, or anyone else. I don't know who else has talked about this publicly.
Yeah, if you're listening
ask
and you know
Taylor.
somebody who did this show, or you know somebody who knows somebody who did this show, send them
And
our way.
Also,
Super interested.
I just wanted to ask, does anyone know if George Bush actually, sponsored this? Or
Yeah, that's another good point.
So this is actually something that
it's election year?
so it's 2007. So in November of this year, so this is aired in September, Obama is going to be elected president.
Yeah.
There was a moment where Emily says, and I think it's Emily, in reference to the chickens being killed, says they're going to hang them like Saddam Hussein, which happened a year prior and was all over the news, like the actual footage of Saddam Hussein being hung.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a ridiculous thing to happen. Like, first of all, like that shouldn't have happened, but also like it's clear the impact that this has had on children.
Sure.
Did your parents let you guys watch that?
I don't.
Do you remember that?
So that's the thing
now
is,
that you say that, I
I-
remember seeing the footage. Yeah,
But
I
like
remember
as a
seeing it.
13-year-old.
probably.
I was 14 at the time. Like I remember seeing it, but I also remember my parents like very quickly changing channels. Like,
Sure.
My life was highly censored. We didn't have cable.
Yeah, like talking about it, I can like picture the footage in my head. You know, I don't remember like how and when I saw it, but yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. This is just such a weird. It's such a weird year in particular, to have a bunch of kids who are like gleaning all of this information that we probably assume they're not gleaning. It kind of makes me wonder, like, I would love to just talk to kids from like 2016 or 2017 and see what they gleaned during the whole like presidential election.
Yeah.
Like how much did they miss? What are their thoughts? Obviously they're dumb, they're children, but like what are they?
That's a joke for anyone who doesn't know Adam that well. Oh my gosh.
Or is it?
It is a joke. Stop it.
I love kids.
I know.
But it's this is an interesting insight into that. So from like it is unfortunately a check in the this is an interesting social experiment category. Sure. It just has nothing to do with what they set out to like create.
Yeah.
Yeah, because President Bush is brought up, so that the hanging thing they discussed, and Bush is just kind of peppered into conversation like pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So I think like, you know, which I don't know what to glean from that, but basically like, you know, kids are listening to what's happening politically.
Right. I mean, for Emily, she's 9 years old. That means that she has had, I mean, Bill Clinton was president when she was born. And then George W. Bush.
No, that's
for
true.
8 years.
Yeah, she's just
That's
seen
true.
him as president her whole life.
And in that time, like some pretty crazy things happened in 9/11 and then going to war in Afghanistan and Katrina. And like all of these major things happened over those 8 years where, I mean, it's just one right after the other. How is Bush responding to this? How is Bush responding to this? How is Bush responding to this? I don't know. It kind of, like it makes sense to me that they're gleaning, they're quoting that.
Yeah, and he's just like the stand-in as like the leader figure.
A leader.
Right,
Yeah,
Right.
That's
yeah,
true.
he's the leader of America as far as kids are concerned, you know. Yeah, there's like one, I forget who said it, but someone's like, I bet George Bush has to get loud so people listen to him sometimes. You know, it's like yeah, he's the stand-in, the symbol of leadership.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably like, I forget, but like, that's what they're learning in school. Like,
Yeah, probably.
like it's probably being talked about. Like, I forget what school was like then, but we had like I guess I'm remembering now. We had like a current events board in the 4th grade that we would talk about all the things that are happening and then we would discuss it. So I wonder if, yeah, it's just like a part of their education too.
Yeah. I find that part really interesting, but
Or it's part of the 4-H curriculum.
or it could be part of the 4-H
Is it
curriculum.
very like right wing?
They pledge allegiance to the flag and then George W. Bush.
Yeah.
That's what I remember doing in 4-H. Oh, I'm waiting for someone to make an Obama reference though. Like,
Yeah.
it has to happen, right?
I mean, like if this aired in 2007, like I'm sure they filmed it a ways in advance, right? Like I don't
Or
know
am I?
how on the
True.
radar
I'm not a
it
year
was.
off, am I? It was like Obama
I don't
was.
know. He was elected in 2000. He took office in 2008.
So November of
Yeah.
2007, he
Right.
was elected.
Yeah.
No, he was elected in 2008. I'm a year off. Yeah,
Oh, so then he like
he
technically
was
took
president.
office in 2009.
Yeah, from 2009 to 2017.
Oh, okay. My
So
bad.
so
I
I'm
don't
a
know
year
how
off.
things work.
So yeah. So we're even ramping up to that that whole election cycle, which yeah. So yeah, yeah. I think we've been talking for what, like an hour now or something like that. I don't think there's any more specific points that I want to make about these first 3 episodes. So I'll give everyone kind of a last chance. Is there anything that stood out to you that we didn't talk about? Something really weighing on you?
I don't
I
think
got
so.
my Greg Plant theory off my chest, so I'm good.
Yeah.
I think Sophia's great. I just want that to be known. I love everything Sophia's done so far.
You think she deserved the gold star?
Oh, for sure. No question.
And that's why we're meant to be, folks, because if you remember at the beginning of this episode, I said that I would be Sophia.
Full circle.
Full circle. All right. Well, do I have to hand it back to you, Alex, or am I the host until I hand it back to you? Is that what happens?
I think it's yours until it's handed back.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening to Outwatch. If you enjoy this show, you should check out Dungeon Arcade.
Yes.
It's nothing like this show, but is a lot of fun.
It is also hosted by Adam.
I am slightly behind on the uploads because I've been transferring our host and also been a little busy. The world's going crazy right now, so I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. But yeah, you should check out Dungeon Arcade. We are going to talk about this for 3 more episodes. If you are really curious as to what the show is like, because it is a fever dream, you should check out Kid Nation. If you search for it on YouTube, you should be able to find it. CBS isn't brave enough to put it on CBS All Access, so if anyone has the phone number of the president of CBS, you send that my way.
Nope, incorrect.
I'll give him a call.
None of that.
We'll see if we can get this, stop hiding.
It's false.
See if we can get this worked out.
So until next time, it's Kid
Next
Nation.
time on Outwatch. We'll discuss episodes 4 through 6 of Kid Nation.
So yeah, Taylor's little catchphrase on this show is "deal with it."
Deal with it.
Deal with it.
I think we should end that way.
And if you don't like this content, deal with it.
Deal with it.
But please keep listening.
Yeah, we'll be back to Survivor in a few episodes, but I hope you stick with us through Kid Nation. It's a fun little side trail.
I have one more question I forgot.
No.
We can exit on this.
Okay.
Okay, episodes 1 through 3. Emily, do you want to leave Bonanza?
Wow. What a question. I don't know. I think if I've been too uncomfortable, I would have left day 1. And I probably would have been too uncomfortable. So yeah, I'm probably gone.
Scott, episodes 1 through 3. Do you want to leave Bonanza?
Both yes and no. At this point, I'm hooked. I'm in. Let's go.
Jen, 1 through 3. Do we want to leave Bonanza?
Are we saying like me now or if I was in the show?
Either or.
Well,
There's no structure to my questions.
Yeah, I've always had a savior complex. And so I would have definitely stayed to save the little kids.
Yeah.
All right, Alex.
Not only am I staying, I'm going to sweep those gold stars.
Yeah.
And I am for sure staying in Bonanza because I can't look away.
Listen, sometimes George Bush has to stick it out when things are hard.
Yeah. Sometimes people call him bossy because he has to be in charge.
Sometimes George Bush has to fly Air Force One over New Orleans after a hurricane.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Wow. Deal with it.